Social anxiety disorder. Many people are uncomfortable when interacting with others or talking or performing in front of others. A number of entertainers and sports figures, from singer Barbra Streisand to baseball pitcher Zach Greinke, have described episodes of significant anxiety before performing. Social fears of this kind certainly are unpleasant, but usually the people who have them manage to function adequately. People with social anxiety disorder, by contrast, have severe, persistent, and irrational anxiety about social or performance situations in which they may face scrutiny by others and possibly feel embarrassment. The social anxiety may be narrow, such as a fear of talking in public or eating in front of others, or it may be broad, such as a general fear of functioning poorly in front of others. In both forms, people repeatedly judge themselves as performing less competently than they actually do. It is because of its wide-ranging scope that this disorder is now called social anxiety disorder rather than social phobia, the label it had in past editions of the DSM. Social anxiety disorder can interfere greatly with one's life. A person who cannot interact with others or speak in public may fail to carry out important responsibilities. One who cannot eat in public may reject meal invitations and other social offerings. Since many people with this disorder keep their fears secret, their social reluctance is often misinterpreted as snobbery, lack of interest, or hostility. Surveys reveal that 7.4% of people in the United States and other Western countries, around 60% of them female, experience social anxiety disorder in any given year. Around 13% develop this disorder at some point in their lives. It tends to begin in late childhood or adolescence and may continue into adulthood. At least 1/4 of individuals with social anxiety disorder are currently in treatment. Research finds that poor people are 50% more likely than wealthier people to have social anxiety disorder. Moreover, in several studies African Americans and Asian Americans, but not Hispanic Americans, have scored higher than white Americans on surveys of social anxiety. In addition, a culture-bound disorder called Tain Kaya-Fusho seems to be particularly common in Asian countries such as Japan and Korea. Although this disorder is traditionally defined as a fear of making other people feel uncomfortable, a number of clinicians now suspect that it suffers primarily fear being evaluated negatively by other people, a key feature of social anxiety disorder. What causes social anxiety disorder? The leading explanation for social anxiety disorder has been proposed by cognitive theorists and researchers. They contend that people with this disorder hold a group of social beliefs and expectations that consistently work against them. These include: they hold unrealistically high social standards and so believe that they must perform perfectly in social situations. They view themselves as unattractive social beings. They view themselves as socially unskilled and inadequate. They believe they are always in danger of behaving incompetently in social situations. They believe that inept behaviors in social situations will inevitably lead to terrible consequences. They believe that they have no control over feelings of anxiety that emerge in social situations. Cognitive theorists hold that, because of these beliefs, people with social anxiety disorder keep anticipating that social disasters will occur. And they repeatedly perform avoidance and safety behaviors to help prevent or reduce such disasters. Avoidance behaviors include, for example, talking only to people they already know well at gatherings or parties. Safety behaviors include wearing makeup to cover up blushing. Beset by such beliefs and expectations, people with social anxiety disorder find that their anxiety levels increase as soon as they enter into a social situation. Moreover, because they are convinced that their social flaws are the cause of the anxiety, certain that they do not have the social skills to deal with the situation, and concerned that they cannot contain their negative arousal, they become filled with anxiety. Later, after the social event has taken place, the individuals repeatedly review the details of the event. They overestimate how poorly things went and what negative results may take place. These persistent thoughts actually keep the event alive and further increase the individual's fears about future social situations. Researchers have indeed found that people with social anxiety disorder manifest the beliefs, expectations, interpretations, and feelings listed here. At the same time, cognitive theorists often differ on why some individuals have such cognitions and others do not. Various factors have been uncovered by researchers, including genetic predispositions, trait tendencies, biological abnormalities, traumatic childhood experiences, and overprotective parent-child interactions during childhood. Treatments for social anxiety disorder. Only in the past 15 years have clinicians been able to treat social anxiety disorder successfully. Their newfound success is due in part to the growing recognition that the disorder has two distinct features that may feed upon each other. 1. Sufferers have overwhelming social fears, and 2. They often lack skill at starting conversations, communicating their needs, or meeting the needs of others. Armed with this insight, clinicians now treat social anxiety disorder by trying to reduce social fears, by providing training in social skills, or both. How can social fears be reduced? Social fears are often reduced through medication. Somewhat surprisingly, it is antidepressant medications that seem to be the drugs of most help for this disorder, often more helpful than benzodiazepines or other kinds of anti-anxiety medications. At the same time, several types of psychotherapy have proved to be at least as effective as medication at reducing social fears. And people helped by such psychological treatments appear less likely to relapse than those treated with medications alone. This finding suggests to some clinicians that the psychological approaches should always be included in the treatment of social fears. One psychological approach is exposure therapy, the behavioral intervention so effective with phobias. Exposure therapists encourage clients with social fears to expose themselves to the dreaded social situations and to remain until their fears subside. Usually the exposure is gradual, and it often includes homework assignments that are carried out in the social situations. In addition, group therapy offers an ideal setting for exposure treatments by allowing people to face social situations in an atmosphere of support and caring. In one group, for example, a man who was afraid that his hands would tremble in the presence of other people had to write on a blackboard in front of the group and serve tea to the other members. Cognitive therapies have also been widely used to treat social fears, often in combination with behavioral techniques. In the following discussion, cognitive therapist Albert Ellis uses rational emotive therapy to help a man who fears he will be rejected if he speaks up at gatherings. The discussion took place after the man had done a homework assignment in which he was asked to identify his negative social expectations and force himself to say anything he had on his mind. In social situations, no matter how stupid it might seem to him. After 2 weeks of this assignment, the patient came into his next session of therapy and reported, "I did what you told me to do. Every time, just as you said, I found myself retreating from people," I said to myself. "Now, even though you can't see it, there must be some sentences. What are they?" And I finally found them. And there were many of them. And they all seemed to say the same thing. What thing? That I was going to be rejected. If I related to them, I was going to be rejected. And wouldn't that be perfectly awful if I was to be rejected? And there was no reason for me, to take that, sort of thing, and be rejected in that awful manner. And did you do the second part of the homework assignment? The forcing myself to speak up and express myself? Yes, that part. That was worse. That was really hard. Much harder than I thought it would be. But I did it. And? Oh, not bad at all. I spoke up several times, more than I've ever done before. Some people were very surprised. Phyllis was very surprised, too. But I spoke up. And how did you feel after expressing yourself like that? Remarkable. I don't remember when I last felt this way. I felt, just remarkable good, that is. It was really something to feel. But it was so hard. I almost didn't make it. And a couple of other times during the week I had to force myself again. But I did. And I was glad. Studies show that rational emotive therapy and other cognitive approaches do indeed help reduce social fears. And these reductions typically persist for years. On the other hand, research also suggests that while cognitive therapy often reduces social fears, it does not consistently help people perform effectively in social settings. This is where social skills training has come to the forefront. How can social skills be improved? In social skills training, therapists combine several behavioral techniques in order to help people improve their social skills. They usually model appropriate social behaviors for clients and encourage the individuals to try them out. The clients then role-play with the therapists, rehearsing their new behaviors until they become more effective. Throughout the process, therapists provide frank feedback and praise the clients for effective performances. Reinforcement from other people with similar social difficulties is often more powerful than reinforcement from a therapist alone. In social skills training groups and assertiveness training groups, members try out and rehearse new social behaviors with other group members. The group can also provide guidance on what is socially appropriate. According to research, social skills training, both individual and group formats, has helped many people perform better in social situations. Social media jitters. Some people develop cyber fear, a persistent fear of computer crashes, computer viruses, computer identity theft, and/or cyber terrorism. In recent years, researchers have learned that computer and mobile device use can also produce more common forms of anxiety, including social and generalized anxiety. The biggest culprit here seems to be spending too much time on social networks such as Facebook. Although frequenting social network sites helps many people feel more supported, important, and included, for others, the visits seem to produce significant insecurities and fears. Surveys suggest, for example, that more than one-third of Facebook users develop a fear that others will post or use information or photos of them without their permission. In addition, a fourth of all users feel a constant pressure to disclose too much personal information on their social networks. And a number feel intense pressure to post material that will be popular and get numerous comments and likes. More than a few users also worry that they will discover posts about social activities from which they were excluded. Consistent with such concerns, one study found that a third of users feel distinctly worse after visiting Facebook, more anxious, more envious, and more dissatisfied with their lives. Such feelings are particularly triggered when users observe vacation photos of other users, read birthday greetings received by other users, and see how many likes or comments others receive for their postings or photos. Such experiences seem to trigger a form of social comparison and lead some users to worry that they are less desirable, less interesting, or less capable than most other social media users. Of course, many of today's users do feel more positive about their social network visits. But even these people may have some social network-induced anxiety and tension. Around two-thirds, for example, are truly afraid that they will miss something if they don't check their social networks constantly, a phenomenon known as FOMO, fear of missing out. Social networking is not the only digital source of anxiety. Recent studies show that excessive cell phone use, for any purpose, often results in high levels of anxiety and tension. Why? Some theorists speculate that frequent phone users feel obligated to stay in touch with friends, another version of FOMO. Still, other theorists believe that the rise in anxiety among heavy cell phone users is really the result of other cell phone effects, such as poorer performance in school or a reduction in positive time spent alone and self-reflecting. Whatever the explanation, two-thirds of cell phone users report feeling panicked when they misplace or lose their phones, even for a few minutes. Many experience nomophobia, no mobile phone phobia, a pop term for the rush of fear that people have when they realize that they are disconnected from the world, friends, and family. Of course, only a minority of these feelings of anxiety and tension rise to the level of psychopathology. But clearly a picture of widespread anxiety is emerging in this realm. And clinical researchers and practitioners are now scrambling to investigate and better understand the nature, breadth,